right? Now, this brings us right into our next kind of topic, which is going to be endorsements. So like I said, you may be able to get coverage like earthquake coverage through an endorsement of the policy. So what's an endorsement? So an endorsement is also known as a rider, okay? So what that means, it's a part of the policy which modifies the rest of the policy, right? A lot of times you should see them listed on the declarations page. Now, they're not going to be spelled out what they mean, right? But you should see, the named insured, insured location, coverage limits, policy number, and then the the endorsement should be listed, right? So once you get past the declarations page, you get past the definitions, you get past the insuring agreement, you should get to the endorsements, right? And they'll say, one of one, one of three, right? And so you can leaf through those things, and you have to pay attention to them, right? Because they're important. So what are some examples? So let's take, we spoke briefly about one, and there's two I haven't mentioned. It all falls under C, so let's talk about that. So again, coverage C, personal property, art and jewelry they're going to be excluded. Okay, now it has nothing to do with perils. It's just about the type of personal property, right? So even if your house burns down and fire is a covered peril, and it burns up all your nice jewelry and your art from Beijing, well, it's not going to be covered, okay? Because if you look at the policy, under exclusions, it should say under personal property, we're not covering art, we're not covering jewelry, right? That's why if you ever go buy, a jewelry, I know I had this when I bought my wife the engagement ring, you'll get, some offer to get jewelry insurance, right? So what you can do is get a rider or an endorsement that provides for jewelry or provides for art. All right, so that may be something you want to consider. You may not, but again, just understand that look at the policy, but your policy should not cover art, should not cover jewelry. So if you do want to cover it, you may want to consider getting a rider that would include coverage for art and coverage for jewelry. Now, the one that we talked about, okay, this was under the replacement cost value under the personal property, right? So again, the standard being if there's damage to the personal property, it's going to be actual cash value, ACV, but if you got the endorsement, you get replacement cost value, all right? So what that means is you can sidestep the issue of depreciation, right? So think about that ridiculous example with the tux and the couch. So that's something to consider too. I would, take a look at that. Couple of points about the endorsements. One is that endorsements can provide coverage when there was none. So look at the example we just spoke about, right? Art, jewelry. Normally that's not going to be covered under the policy, but if you buy this rider, all of a sudden, boom, you step in, you have coverage for those types of personal property, all right? Other thing to keep in mind is that riders' endorsements can expand the scope of coverage. Example, you take the replacement cost value, right? So what that means is now you don't have to deduct for depreciation, right? And so the scope of the coverage is arguably expanded in that instance. Now, also keep in mind that endorsements can be major, they could be minor. So, a minor one arguably is going to be, okay, your jewelry and your art, all right? That's not a break it or make it or break it analysis, all right? Major one could be an endorsement that changes the named insured or the insured, right? And I've seen that. So this is where you really have to pay attention. So let's take this back to the beginning. Your analysis begins on the declarations page, which is who is a named insured. Then you go on to the definitions to see if the insured includes, in addition to the named insured, someone else. But don't stop there. Then you have to look at the endorsements to see if there is an endorsement that changes the definition of insured or named insured, right? So that's the whole point of me coming at this and deconstructing it and taking it piece by piece by piece, because you have to focus on this policy and a piecemeal approach, and then you have to put it all together and understand it holistically, right? Last thing I want to mention about endorsements is that the endorsement controls over the insuring agreement, all right? And so that's going to make sense if you think about it. I mean, contract law, black letter contract law, the specific trumps the general, right? So if you have an endorsement comes in and it's going to change the terms of the insuring agreement, well, that endorsement controls, all right? Nothing else. So that's really it as far as a policy goes.